We just watched Alien for the first time. Is it as good as they say it is? Let's find out. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back. The Eye of the Storm podcast. Danny G, do you want to let the audience know what we're doing today?
So this is Have You Seen, in which we talk about a movie that some of us know well and others have just seen for the first time. This time around, we're talking about Ridley Scott's Alien from 1979, which I've seen many times and the two of you just saw for the first time. So what are your impressions?
So I'm going to add a little caveat in here, just for any new audience members. The horror genre isn't typically my sort of thing. I would normally go and put on a horror movie. So with that said, I thought this was a good movie. It was a slow burn to start off with. I think it was, the pacing at the start was like very slow, and maybe sort of deliberately, just as a kind of like introducing us to sort of this sort of crew and sort of the mission and essentially sort of what they're doing, and they're introducing sort of different concepts and stuff like that. But it was quite slow, sometimes painfully slow, and sort of in this area where there's loads of distractions, you can kind of be at home watching this and get distracted maybe on your phone and stuff like that quite easily watching it. So I did have to watch it sort of twice from the start to sort of properly understand and analyze the movie. But I feel like once it got going, it was pretty entertaining. I do feel it was predictable, a little bit telegraphed, sort of kind of what was going to be happening in the movie. But at the same time, it was it was a really good movie. I feel like the visual effects, like that's the first thing I want to point out of this as well, is like especially watching it for the first time, and me being a little bit of a snob and not watching sort of too many old movies. The first thing I did notice was that the set designs and everything about it just kind of felt real, and they really sort of kind of like brought to life sort of this whole sort of the whole like ship and sort of the atmosphere and sort of kind of it made you sort of immersed in the world immediately. I would say that. And secondly, and this is just kind of like a bit of a throwaway comment, but was this movie made in 1979 or 2024? Because there's so much talk about like diversity on screen, this and the other, and this movie had your strong female lead, you had your your black actor in there that didn't die first in the movie.
Two of them, right?
Two of them, yeah. And you had like quite a wide sort of diverse cast, so yeah, that I also sort of noticed sort of right away, and wasn't sort of what I was expecting kind of going into the movie, so it was a pleasant surprise to see that as well. But I think overall it was really good. The alien design was pretty cool as well. I actually really liked the alien design in the movie as well. And there were some like 10 scenes in there as well. It was like really good horror. I'd say so.
Jonathan, what's your main impression, your main takeaway?
I feel like it was good for its time. But it was a hard watch. And I believe it's not it, I don't think it's a film problem. I just think when it comes to old movies, it's more of a universal thing. You kind of have to concentrate, like your concentration level has to be like on 100 from the very first. As soon as the movie starts, you're gonna have to concentrate in these movies. What I feel like from my experiences from watching old movies, whereas with the newer stuff, like you can kind of like lose yourself in the film. So yeah, I just think with this movie, like I said, it was good for its time. I understand why it was such a box office hit because this is one of the first time you've seen stuff like this, and I understand why it's so scary for people. But because like I said, I've seen so many horror movies, so I didn't feel like this was a horror. So you could kind of say I've been left numb by all the horror movies I have seen up until now in terms of like Alien. But overall, I think the experience was it was an all right experience. Yeah, I just think in terms of like me being emotionally engaged in the film, it was more so when near the end. I'd probably say it's near the end when people started dying is when I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm getting into I can feel my emotions kind of like rising up. But I'd probably say like a big chunk of the film, like in the beginning, it was very slow. Even when they got to the part where they found the eggs, like just the build up to that part, it felt kind of like very slow. I do feel like the acting in here was pretty like it was pretty good. It was pretty good. It felt authentic in comparison to like other old movies which I've seen, like Star Wars, for example. This one didn't really feel theatrical. It felt like these lot were like a group of friends and they were actually out of space. So I'd say overall, I say overall, like I said, I appreciate that. I do understand and I do appreciate that it was good for its time. But for me personally, I'll say I've had a above average experience this film.
Just to add to what you said earlier about kind of like the story of the movie, one thing that I did notice or did kind of appreciate, it was like very linear. You didn't really get bogged down too much into sort of some of like the side characters and what some of this person and that person's doing this and the others. It was very clear and intentional sort of the story that it wanted to tell. And I think it sort of managed that well without getting too distracted with sort of all the different sort of cast members that were there in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's a really big part of it, that it doesn't try to do a million things. It's this one situation, and these are a couple of people who are trying to survive and trying to figure out what even is going on. And it's a very focused story, right? And I think that really is to its benefit, because it just that allows you to just keep building. Like every scene builds on what came before, right? And I like you've both said, I think that it's on the slower side, and I think that's true at least for like the first hour, which I think is very deliberate, and it serves to build tension, right? Like every scene, we really find out something about somebody, or the plot is driven forward in some way, right? Like I have this thing in horror movies, which I call the boring first half hour, and I really need to come up with a better name for it. But it's basically a lot of horror movies basically just show just boring people doing boring things for half an hour so that we know them when they start dying, right? And this movie doesn't do that, right? Every scene, like even if they're just having lunch, it tells us something about them, right? It tells us that they are just regular people. They are concerned about their paychecks. They have little squabbles with each other, right? It's and that's which is very unusual for science fiction, especially at the time, right? And even after the alien is found, like even after they go onto the planet, and after we know that in hindsight, you know that one of them is incubating an alien, right? Like there aren't just filler scenes. It all kind of builds towards something, and we find out about how the company is not the nicest place to work for, and so when it turns out that there's a standing order that the crew is expendable if there's a chance to capture an alien, it just makes sense, right? But we've established that at the start, so we don't just have somebody come out and talk about the evil corporation. We've had the idea seeded in like 3 scenes before. So it all, like, I think if you try to cut a scene, you would be very hard pressed to find one that doesn't serve a good purpose.
And I think this is probably best served, having watched this in the theater, because again, like you said, there are a lot of things happening in sort of the opening sort of hour of the movie, but then parts of it, if you missed like some of the corporate stuff that you're talking about there, where they're like kind of like concerned with the paycheck and stuff like that. It's one of those like you can just kind of like turn away or like be distracted by something, and you sort of miss what's sort of going on, what's being said, and that then sort of being kind of crucial for some of the later parts. Because I do remember the part where obviously where they discovered that, I can't remember the guy's name, is a robot, which was actually a very...
Oh yeah, he was hilarious. So he had hilarious.
Yeah, because like the whole time he seemed like very like one note and very like off kilter throughout the whole thing, and he just seemed to like kind of like monotone or whatever. So there was like something definitely off about him, but you didn't kind of like pick up on it until like it actually is revealed that he's a robot, which was actually I thought was like really well done. But
you watch the movie and you think he's just a corporate drone, and then it turns out he is.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But like you said, there's a lot of like details, and there's a lot of like some kind of like building on the characters that's going on in here. But it's just, again, best I've watching this in the movie theater without some of the distractions that we have in today's age, which sort of didn't exist back then when this movie came out.
Yeah, and today just having just space truckers, like not like science fiction protagonists who are not soldiers or academics or scientists or something. Like today, that's a little bit more common, but like in 1979, it was a revelation, right? Like that's not how science fiction up until that point was.
How was the female lead received? Because I know that's always a sort of big contention point in sort of today's age. Yeah. But Sigourney Weaver is the character's name. I believe I recognize her in other movies. I can't remember.
Sigourney Weaver is the actress. Ellen Ripley is the main character.
Yeah, basically. But I mean, I've like seen her in other movies.
I think this was the start, even, or one. No, I don't know her exact filmography, but I think it was one of either her first role or one of her earliest roles.
Yeah.
So she wasn't necessarily who you expected to be the hero at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, horror movies usually have the last survivor be a woman, right? That the final girl is like this horror trope. But at the same time, science fiction heroes are usually men, at least at the time. And so you kind of have these two things going on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like people like to pretend that there were no female heroes in science fiction before 2018 or whatever, and that's just not true. Like there's a whole bunch, especially like the really classic ones like Ripley or
Sarah Connor.
Sarah Connor is the other big one. Classic Planet of the Apes has a female lead in there that is maybe not the lead, but one of the co-leads. So this is way overstated generally, but yeah, I think so. I'm not entirely sure how Ripley was received at the time, but it didn't hurt the movie.
Yeah, no, fair. One thing that I actually really did enjoy when they were kind of like sort of going through the slower parts was when they were sort of kind of like researching the alien and sort of like kind of like discovering more and more things about it, things that it was like kind of like resistant to and this, that, and the other, which again like is just adding to sort of the world building, adding to the detailing to that sort of later in the movie, sort of when one part I actually might have missed again was that when the guy that was a robot said, "Oh, you can just use fire because all animals tend to run away from fire." Did that work in? I'm trying to remember it because I watched this movie like a few days ago. That did that work in the end in terms of like them just like kind of like using fire as like a means of sort of as a means of sort of, well, she ended up like shooting him out into sort of space or whatever like that. But was that actually like then like paid off later in the movie, that particular?
I think it's more that the alien doesn't take anybody on in a fair fight. Right? It's an ambush predator. It stalks you until you let your guard down, and then it kind of slides from the shadows and just eats you.
Yeah.
And I think it's more like it recognizes the flamethrower as a weapon, so it doesn't just charge into the fire.
Okay.
That's kind of the thing. And that's another really interesting thing about the alien too, that until the end we don't really know how smart it is, right? Like it kind of comes across as kind of as an animal, but then over time it gets smarter, or we see more of its intelligence, right? Like at that one point where somebody goes into like a storage bay or something to get something. I forget what exactly it was, and then the alien kind of is hiding on the ceiling and kind of ambushes him, right? And then at the very end, when Ripley makes it into the shuttle, we see that the alien anticipated that it will go into the shuttle and is waiting for her there. That's where it becomes really clear. Like before that it's ambiguous. It might just be a smart animal, but now we see that it's intelligent, which makes it just even like at the very end, it just becomes just a little bit more scary because now it's smarter than you thought it was, and you can't outsmart it in that way, right? Like you could like an animal.
Because I'm trying to understand. Like I said, this isn't a bad movie. Like I said, I had like a all right experience with it, especially near the end. But what about like I'm trying to figure out like the demographic. Is there like a demographic that says that this is one of the best horror movies of all time? And if so, what about it makes it one of the best horror movies of all time? Because there's been a lot of horror movies out there, which I would argue and say, nah, mate. And you know what I'm saying? Like, and yeah, so I'm just trying to understand and figure out what exactly about this movie is what appeals to people, besides the fact that it is good of its time. So of course it was one of the first. Was it one of the first alien type of movies that came out during its time?
I think it might have been the first time there was like a horror type movie in space. Probably not the first one, but it was like normally it's explorers going out and then being heroic, right? That's kind of the standard template, at least at the time. Having working class heroes, making them space truckers, and them trying to evade basically like a monster that's smarter than they think it is. Like that, those are all that's also versions of expectations at the time. Right. So that's part of it. There's other aspects. So it's widely thought of as one of the best horror movies ever made. And there's a couple of different aspects to it. One of them is just how creepy the alien is. Like it really drives home this alienness, right? Like everything about the movie drives this. Like the tagline of the movie is "In space, nobody can hear you scream," which is just a genius tagline, right? It really summarizes what this is about in one sentence, right? And then you've got the vastness of space. You've got the everything about the spaceship. It's not clean and sleek and like flat surfaces. It like a lot of spaceships look like they were filmed inside an Apple store, right? And this is a factory, and this is a truck, right? And this is like everything is dirty and grimy, and there's steam everywhere, and it just looks cold, right? And then you've got the alien, which is like the fact that it doesn't really have a name. Like it's also called the xenomorph, but just calling it the alien just really underlines this point that it is not like us. It doesn't think like us. It doesn't like its life cycle is completely different from ours. Its appearance, like it has like it's got a mouth in its mouth. What's that about, right? It's like it's just alienness personified. Obviously, after we've been watching it for 45 years in 27 different movies, and we've seen it fight the predator on a pyramid in Antarctica, it's maybe not quite as alien anymore. But I think if it's 1979 and you just walked into this trashy looking sci-fi movie, which is what you were maybe expecting at the time, and you get this, imagine the impact.
And that's what I'm trying to like figure out, as in not figure out, but that's pretty much my point of view. So it's like we're supposed to view it from that sense, because if we're supposed to, because that's like what we're viewing it from. Are we viewing it from, okay, is it good of its time, or what was your initial reaction? And do you feel like that based off your initial reaction, was it the best movie of all time?
Yeah, I think you can do both. I think you can say, okay, I understand why this had the impact that it had, and this is how I experience it today, right? Okay. I actually think this is really interesting, where like an interesting aspect of it, where the whole story like hinges on it being alien and mysterious and unknown, but it's one of the most well developed aliens in science fiction, right? Because there have been so many movies, and there have been dozens and dozens of tie-in novels and video games and comics. We pretty much know exactly what an alien is, right? At least in terms of how it operates and how it hunts and what its life cycle is. That kind of defeats its purpose. And we've got an alien movie coming out in a month, Alien Romulus, and like you can't make Alien anymore, right? Like that movie has to be something different. Mm-hmm. And we're like at this time of recording, we don't know if they're going to achieve that, but the trailers don't make it seem like it, right? It's like the trailers make it seem like more alien stuff, and it all looks like alien stuff, but it can't do the unknown horror in space anymore, because they could do that only once.
Yeah, I did watch the trailer for Alien Romulus after this, and it did look very generic. It looked like just your kind of like typical horror movie where there's this like monster trying to get you.
Yeah.
Basically,
I think it looks really authentic to Alien, right? All the environments, all the ships, all the weapons, or the alien itself. It all looks like proper alien stuff. But the trailer is not telling me that they had an idea for what else to do, right? And I think that's because the initial appeal of the alien is this: I don't know what this is. I can't even make sense of it. But now we can. Right?
You know what? I agree and kind of disagree with what you're both saying. Like, I agree with the fact that well, first I disagree with the point that it seemed generic, even though like when I saw it, in terms of the feel, what I got from it, because I'm like a horror junkie, right? So I'm guessing this would, well, I'm assuming this would appeal to a lot of the horror junkies out there. So you have to understand, a lot of people are not familiar with, I'm sure a lot of people that watch horror, especially like the new gen, they're not familiar with like the old aliens. Like, for example, with King Kong, the whole Planet of the Apes. So I did not know that it started all the way in the 80s, was it, or the 70s? So I was just starting off from like 2000s. From the 2000s till obviously the most recent one. What I'm trying to say is, I think it would still, like, the trailer would, I thought this movie will still have an appeal, especially when it comes to just horror junkies and people part of the like new generation. Do you know what I'm saying? Because for me, even like now I'm just watching Alien, right? So I didn't know its history. But obviously when I watched the trailer, I liked the trailer. You know what I'm saying? Because it's mine, like I said, horror junkie is right up my alley. It gave that sinister feel, that dark feel, the group survival. That's my thing. So in terms of them having to create a new story, is like, Do they? Because if you're trying to, if you, because it's a thing where, cool, for the older audience, in terms of people who are like a bit who are familiar with the franchise, have seen all the Alien movies, even the 70s, etc., etc., then yeah, for them. But like I said, well, it's new times, and I think Alien has a universal appeal. But I think
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're leaning more into their new audience, but I don't think the old audience is someone that they would put all their money into, for example, in terms of like they would bet all their money into, as in like who would make them the most money out of this film. I just think in terms of just an alien invasion or an alien, just the storyline itself based on alien on a spaceship, I think that just has a mass appeal, and I don't think it necessarily matters if it's if I don't think it matters if it doesn't need to create a new story. Is what I'm trying to say. It's because it already has that mass appeal. It's horror. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's all horror junkies out there who don't necessarily care,
Yeah.
about continuations, for example.
Yeah, and I think it would be one thing if it was just an alien gets on a spaceship and starts killing people, but the ways in which it kills it is new, right? Or is creative, or some thought was put into it. Like obviously that's going to bore people who have seen the old movies, but maybe it appeals to newer audiences, like you said. But I just think like I think generally the Alien franchise has been plagued with we're just repeating familiar imagery because that's what people like, but we don't have any really new ideas on where to take the story. And I think that is like when we do Aliens, the sequel to this, I think we can have a really good contrast because there have been good Alien sequels, right? And there have been some that are not as good. And I think it's interesting to see the difference. And I think one of the key differences is that the story that we have in Alien depends on you not knowing, right? It depends on not knowing what's going to happen, like what the facehugger is about, and that once the facehugger has laid, like they don't even know that the facehugger is laying eggs inside people, and that they will burst out of their chests eventually, and what that alien will grow into. Like not knowing that, I think like if you didn't know that when you watched it, like did that surprise you, shock you? Could you anticipate where it was going? Like as somebody who has not seen that movie before, did it have its intended effect on you, even watching it 2024?
I would say so, yeah. Mainly because I was very shocked that the guy recovered. Obviously when he had the face hugger on him, not knowing sort of what was come out of it, and then of course you have that scene sort of when sort of the alien sort of burst out of his chest. So I think it definitely still holds sort of the shock factor in that sense. I didn't make the correlation because obviously there was a scene sort of during the opening where they were like sort of they were kind of wading through all the different sort of alien eggs as well. So I didn't actually make that correlation between the two.
That there were aliens in, like those were eggs and there were aliens in them?
No, as in like no, I knew that there were eggs and that there were aliens in them. In a sense, but that sort of it's just that these aliens are constantly sort of like laying eggs and sort of reproducing and this and the other. So that when you have like the face hugger on someone, I didn't quite realize that that was them sort of kind of
Right.
again like reproducing, and then sort of the end result would be that the alien would be sort of bursting out of his chest.
What about the chest burster scene? So they're at dinner. They like the guy has just essentially recovered from a coma, and they're about to go into hibernation again to fly home, and they have one last meal, and then like the alien hatches from his chest. Like not if you didn't know that was coming, what was your reaction to it?
I didn't know that was coming. I didn't know that was coming because I don't think I've like properly watched any of the other Aliens movies. And
it's a very famous scene in cinema, right? So you might have seen it like in a clip or something, but you didn't know it was coming.
No, I didn't know it was coming. And if I had seen a clip of it, I hadn't sort of correlated the two sort of, or that coming from that essentially. But no, I didn't see that coming.
And what was your reaction? Like when the guy started coughing, and then 30 seconds later there's an alien lizard bursting out of his chest and running off and hiding.
To be fair, the whole time before that, I was thinking, I mean, everyone's a bit too kind of comfortable around him. Like, granted that he had like an alien sort of kind of on his face, sort of not too long ago, I felt like everyone was a bit too comfortable around him, and then there probably should have been more safety precautions sort of coming from that. And then to then see the consequences of that, again, it was a shock, but then it's a bit like, I mean, what else did you kind of expect?
Some things like that had to happen, right?
Yeah, something like that was sort of kind of bound to happen because they wouldn't, taking the proper sort of precautions to prevent any sort of further outbreaks or anything like that, or even like making sure that he was like properly fully recovered from that situation. So I think that scene definitely had the right effect on me when I watched it?
For me, I think it definitely gave me the thrill that I needed. And it definitely set the tone. 'Cause it kind of tells you, okay, this is what you're gonna get. Do you know what I'm saying?
I think that's when the movie properly like kind of starts to pick up as well. Because again, like I mentioned, it was like a bit of a slow burn up until that point, and then from there is when sort of things start to get a little bit more action packed and things start to happen. Or things start to get a little bit more exciting past that point.
What did you think about the scene where they explore the derelict ship? So they land on the planet, they see an alien spaceship, which at this point we don't really know how common that is. Like they're not shocked by it, right? So they must know that there are alien civilizations out there. They just don't encounter them very often. You know, they see a derelict ship and they start exploring it. Then there's like this extended sequence where they find the pilot and we find like the aftermath of something that has happened, and then we find the eggs, and then the plot unfolds. How did you find that?
I'm trying to remember it. I'm trying.
There's one thing I'm specifically getting to is, at one point, so they enter the ship and they look around and they find the cockpit essentially, right? They find this large room and there's an alien that's petrified, and he's sitting in his pilot chair, and there's like a hole in his chest, right? So in hindsight, we know that he was probably infected by an alien, and that's how the ship crashed and so on. Yeah. Like for me, that is like I'm a really like I'm kind of a sucker for like the found horror. That's the best way I can describe it. Like where you see the aftermath of something terrible that happened, and you kind of see the implications of it, but you actually don't see it happening by itself, right? So we can kind of see that there was this alien who is completely different from anything we've ever seen, like within that story. And we can see that something happened to him because he's got a massive hole in his chest, and we can see he's incredibly old because he's petrified, literally. And like you can kind of imagine what like that tells a story. Right? So I'm always a big fan of stuff like this where you kind of see like glimpses, but you don't actually see the actual events.
I think it does well to add to like kind of build the tension in terms of, especially being sort of so early on in the movie. You're kind of sort of setting the atmosphere and sort of setting the scene really well, of what's to come further along. Obviously, when sort of things actually start to like sort of happen in the movie, and again, it's building sort of the curiosity as well, especially when they sort of kind of find the eggs. Like, I can't remember what they have to do to like kind of get to the layer of the eggs, or what they had to like wave a hat. What was it again, Daniel? Where they had to like do something to like kind of like break the layer to get to the eggs, if I'm correctly. So
when they find the eggs and just getting close to them causes the eggs to open up.
Yeah, basically, or I think I'm remembering a different aspect of it, but it just adds to the curiosity and adds to sort of kind of like the sort of the tension and sort of the building dread that sort of something bad has happened and something bad again will be happening.
Yeah, I think that scene really has its full impact on the second viewing, because there you know what the hole in the chest means.
Yeah,
and also there's an entire cargo bay full of eggs. Like it's not just an egg lying around. Right? They didn't have this in the cargo hold somewhere, or they were transporting hundreds and hundreds of these, and we can see what one alien does. So now we have the implication that maybe they were weapons, or they were breeding them, or they were designing them, or like something, right? Like that it's not just an alien got on board a ship and then the ship crashed because everybody died, right? It's not what happens on the Nostromo is not a repeat of what happened in the alien ship. No. Right? Like they were doing it looks a lot like somebody was trying to use these aliens for some purpose, and it got out of hand, which kind of implies that even if you are as advanced and ancient as these aliens, you cannot control the xenomorphs. Yeah.
My question is as well on this is, what did the corporate want with these aliens, or this like any sort of form of life that they found on the way back home?
So they go into that in the next movies, not in the second one, but after that. And the basic thing is that they just want to study it and try to see if they can monetize it.
Okay,
that's what I was gonna.
Right, it's literally just profit over life, right? Like they are willing to play with these uncontrollable forces if there's a chance of making a profit.
Yeah,
that's human curiosity. So it's being like that.
Yeah, and they're willing to lose the crew members for the possibility of unrealized profits.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the implication, right? Like they have this standing order crew is expendable. If you find any evidence of this, drop everything and retrieve the alien. And if it means bringing it back inside one of the crew members, right? Like the ship's computer says as much, and Ash, the android, pretty much says as much, right? So the company knows about these things, and it's their, like, they are willing to risk, like, there's a ship that has something like 20 million tons of cargo of metal ore or something, and they're willing to jeopardize that to have a chance at getting an alien.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of tells, and that also implies a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I really liked, for instance, is how everybody's a professional adult, and that's not something you get in every movie in the last like 20 years or something, where they take safety precautions and they argue over quarantine protocols, and they are willing to take risks for their friend, but they also realize that there's a protocol to follow, and people are divided on whether or not to do that. Like, it's really refreshing. Like, if you haven't seen Prometheus, there's like a sequence where essentially the same thing happens, and they get very close to just licking the eggs. Like that's how little they care about safety. And in this movie, they're like if you've ever talked to like mechanics or people who handle dangerous tools or whatever, they're the most safety conscious people you've ever met, right? Mm-hmm. And they kind of strike me as this, and so they realize that there's at least the potential for danger here, and they act accordingly, and it still gets out of hand. Mm-hmm. So, like, a lot of the time in movies, people say, "Oh, we have to have these characters act stupid, otherwise the plot doesn't happen." But here, I think they do more. Like, not everybody does everything right, but broadly they act in a responsible manner, right? Mm-hmm. And it still gets out of hand. And so when it does get out of hand, I personally care more, because they at least tried, or they made a believable attempt to do this safely, and it still blew up in their face.
Yeah,
I think that's much more impactful than if they were just reckless cowboys.
The only thing that maybe I was thinking, because I actually did think about that when I was watching the movie, the only thing that I thought was maybe they could have been more angry, because I think at that point someone had died, where it was the guy with the hole in his chest where he had died. And I believe the guy that was like trying to find the cat as well, or was like, they were trying to find the alien, or chasing the cat. I can't remember which one it was. But then he
does it too. Yeah, they risk everything for the cat. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And I thought at that point, you know, is it Emma Ripley? Ellen Ripley. I would have thought she would have been a lot more stronger than she was in terms of like arguing against the guy that turned out to be the android. It was the only thing that I actually sort of up on that sense.
Yeah, early on she's the responsible one who's pretty much arguing for quarantine, essentially.
Yeah.
Just follow the rules because the rules are there for a purpose, and by the end she's just about survival.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, in terms of like the protocols and stuff, and how obviously, in this movie, in comparison to Prometheus, they were more professional. But wouldn't you say that's a reflection of the time? Because I feel like with the generation now, they're a bit more daredevil-y, if that makes sense.
Mm. No, but I sometimes it's just people just being stupid in movies.
Like, yeah, but professional.
Yeah. I think it comes down to Prometheus is not as smart of a movie. Like, this movie just, like, Alien just does everything deliberately and really thinks about, like, the whole appeal of the story is that these are regular people in an extraordinary circumstance. And because these people act like real people, you believe the spaceship, you believe the alien, you believe the rules, like the whole life cycle. Like, it has parallel, like, there are insects that kind of hatch their eggs in other animals and stuff like that. So it's not completely out of nowhere, but it's like a very elaborate. Yeah, you have a hard time seeing how this animal could live, right, just by itself, right? But you buy it because these people act like real people. And I think Prometheus would have been a better movie if the same had been the case.
I actually enjoyed Prometheus, but and that was so fun of a day.
One more thing on the acting, because I know we touched. I think you touched on it as well, Jonathan, about how you prefer the acting in this compared to some of the other movies that you watched at the time. The only one that I disliked was it Parker, the other female that was in this movie.
Oh no, you're crazy. Why?
I didn't dislike her as a character per se, but just more the portrayal and the acting. I feel like that's where it was a little bit more theatrical, when she was like upset, or when she was like kind of like crying over some of the guy that had the alien on his face.
Yeah, that was foolish.
I feel like that was where you could feel the dated acting for me personally.
I think I actually agree with that, but I think she delivered one of the like one of the most eye-catching scenes where remember when the main actress wasn't gonna open the door for the crew members because she was trying to follow protocol.
Mhm.
And then when she finally, obviously, when the guy said that's an order, and then she finally let him in, and then the girl actress, the other, what's her name? What's the other girl's name?
Is it Parker?
Is it Lambert?
That was Lambert. That's the
Yeah,
navigator.
Lambert.
Parker
And then
is the-
and then Lambert just gave her the right hand. You know what I'm saying? She just slapped her. And I felt that scene because it's like, one of those people that are always following protocols, like to the bone. Even when someone's in like at a point where they could die, they're still gonna follow protocols. Like I've seen that. That really pisses me off. So I felt the slap. I even wanted to slap her, but I don't hit women. So I felt the slap. So that's why I said that scene there was one of the most, for me, one of the like a highlight moment. And I was like, that is a genuine reaction.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, at some point, I believe that they are people and they just crack and panic. But yeah.
Yeah, but that
Like,
scene where she was crying nearly and got the black guy killed, I said she's an idiot for that. I can't even lie to you. She deserved to die after that. Sorry.
Why was I don't know if it's answered or not. Why was the aliens not incubating some of the humans, but there was that scene where she's got the flamethrower and then she sees the guy, I can't remember what his name is, and he's asking her to kill him, basically. Like what was all that about in the
Oh,
movie?
when he was in the aliens goo thing.
In like the goo, yeah, and she's got the flamethrower and then she just like kind of like lights the place up.
Yeah, because he's literally in pain.
No, I know he's in pain. I know like that aspect of it, but is it explained why the alien does that? Why the alien
Oh
has
yeah.
up in the goo and anything like that?
I don't think it's explained, but we also don't really like part of their life cycle is implanting the eggs in people, right?
Mhm.
So we don't really know what the next step is. So I think it stands to reason that the alien is kind of is more interested in capturing people so that more eggs can be implanted in them,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And something else has to happen first. So the guy just gets kind of parked for a while.
Mhm.
And he kind of knows what's going to happen to him because he's seen it happen to his friend, and he has no hope of getting away, and so he just begs her to kill him.
Makes sense.
That's kind of how I took it.
Makes sense.
And that's the other thing, right? That pretty much every step of the way kind of makes sense. You kind of see why people are doing things.
Mhm.
I think that also buys into the believability where if you have a realistic cause and effect thing going on, then you have like it's and then the movie starts gradually taking away the good options until only bad ones are left.
Mhm.
Like that builds up more tension. And I think this is really what this movie, like the bottom line of why this movie is so great, is because it builds that tension, right? Like I've watched it, I don't know how often, and it still has an impact, even though I know when the jump scares are coming and I know what's going to happen. But because you know something that the characters don't at that point, once you've seen it at least once. So the first time you see it, you are along with the characters, and you kind of are discovering these things with them. And then from the second time onward, you know more than them, and now that's suspense, right? That's the gun, like the bomb under the table, right? Like that, like if the audience knows there's a bomb under the table, but characters don't, that creates suspense, right? And this is what this movie does, right? Like because each step is logical, and you know what options they have, and you know why they make the decisions they make. That builds up suspense over time, and one by one, they get killed until only one person is left. And the movie has sold you on the idea that however Ripley survives, it has to make sense.
Mhm.
And she can't just pull something out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where a lot of these movies fall flat, where they kind of do scary stuff for a while, and then they have to end it, and then they invent something. I think that does kill so many movies for me. And Alien just doesn't do it, and I think that's why it keeps working, even if you've seen it multiple times.
One more question for you, Daniel. One more question.
Go for it.
Because you've seen it so many times, what's one thing they could have done differently for the crew to survive?
For the crew to survive.
Right. Not just Ellen Ripley. For the crew.
Not just Ripley, but everybody. They can't really. Like they don't know enough, and they don't have the tools. Like they have weapons, but they're not soldiers. They're locked in a confined space. I think the sci-fi rules of this, like the fact that they can't just go to the engine room and MacGyver up a warp drive and go, right? Like this is kind of why Star Trek doesn't really work, in the sense, like for these kinds of stories, is because in Alien there is no magic technology solution where you can just cobble something together and it works and it solves the problem. You kind of know what technical solutions they have. We know space is big, the ship is slow. We know that there's no FTL, there's only cryo suspension. We know that the next planet is months away, if not years. Like they are really trapped in a bad place with not enough weapons, not enough knowledge, not enough time. And I don't think there's like a plot hole or something in there, or if you change this one thing, they could have made it. Like at no point does anybody make a stupid decision. Like this is not like, I'm gonna investigate the scary noise in the basement alone, right? Like nothing like that happens. Like when they split up, it's for a reason. It's because they need multiple things and they don't have enough time to do it all together, right? Or they have too much ground to cover, so they have to split up and stuff like that. I think that's also why it works, is because you're never yelling at the screen to not do the stupid thing. And if they do something that's stupid in retrospect, it's because they're human and they were acting on the information they had and on the skills they had and on the options that they had. And because of that, I think it works so well.
You summarized that well.
Any last words before we wrap up? Did this motivate you to watch the next one? Do you want to see more Alien?
Again, I added the caveat at the start of the thing, at the start of this. I'm not a horror person, and I wouldn't, again, normally go and watch horror movies. So on my part, I would say probably not, but I do appreciate what this movie was for its time, and kind of what this movie. I do appreciate what this movie is, but I'm not the type of person to go and look at horror movies. That's more Jonathan's thing.
What if I told you the next one is not a horror movie? It's a different genre.
Completely.
Yeah.
With aliens.
Yeah.
I'm curious now. Like how?
Well, I'm sure we'll do that video one day. But
yeah.
Does that make it more or less interesting? If I tell you the next one is very different.
It makes it more interesting because one, you're not getting more of the same thing, and two, if they've made it completely different, it means that they had an idea that they wanted to execute, and they've chosen this approach because this was their perceived best way of executing this idea. So I would be very curious to see what the next movie actually is. Saying that.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Minus the Alien movies, which came out in the 2000s, if it was just like a standalone film and it was revealed to me there's going to be a part 2 coming out, I don't think I would watch the second one. Yeah, that's about it. In terms of it not being horror, I didn't even like I said, I didn't even feel like this was a horror. Actually, no, I take that back. I do feel like this was horror. Actually, I take that back. Because most films I don't feel like is a horror. I think we've spoken about this before, Daniel, at work. But yeah, this was a horror. Yeah, I don't think I'd watch the second movie. Like I said, I didn't. It wasn't bad. I just had I had an all right experience, and I definitely do commend it for being a very good movie and a very good story of its time. It gave birth to many other films, especially when it comes, like you mentioned, like the highlight moment, alien coming out the chest. You see that, you're like, damn, like, that's just, it's gruesome. So yeah, but yeah, I would have watched the second one if I didn't know about obviously the Alien movies which came out in the 2000s and so on.
The one question I did have, because I have the knowledge that there are more movies afterwards, was, and I'm assuming Ellen Ripley is in the sequels. Is she in the second one or the third one? Or...
She's in the first 4.
She's in the first 4.
Well,
okay.
Actually, that's a technicality there, but Sigourney Weaver's in the first 4.
Yeah. So, like, my question was when I was watching the end of it was that she's made a very clean getaway from this place and she's going to go into cryo sleep. How does she possibly get roped back into this alien universe all over again? Was my question at the end of it.
Yeah, we'll find out next week on Have You Seen Aliens?
Uh-huh.
One last question before we wrap up. Does this go on the shelf? We talked a lot about rewatchability and suspense and how there's foreshadowing that you don't catch the first time you see it. Does this have rewatch potential, and is this something you want to rewatch at some point?
I would say in terms of like the production value and stuff like that. Again, I appreciate how well it was made and some of the set designs and stuff like that. I do struggle with older movies in that sense, which is why I struggle to watch things like the original Star Wars trilogy over again. In terms of like the story and the intrigue behind it, I definitely, if they like, if you said to me that they're making a remake of this movie, I think I'd 100% be up for it with sort of like modern technology and this any other. And if it was like a similar story, I think I'd 100% be up for it. Again, this is just like more of like a personal thing where I just kind of like struggle with older movies from time to time. But I do believe that there is a good story there, and like you said, that there is like the, you know, catching things the second time round, especially with like how sort of, you know, the aliens kind of like lurking in the background in some of the certain scenes. I think there was like one where the guy was like chasing a chain and stuff like that, and sort of, I believe you could see it sort of in there as well, if I remember correctly. So for things like that, I would say yes if it was a remake.
I'd say for the older generation, yeah. For the younger, I don't think so. Maybe if they were studying it in like film school, maybe. But yeah, for the younger generation, I don't. I just don't see them like.
Well,
I
the
think they
question
just.
is, do you want to rewatch it?
Do I want to rewatch it? Maybe in different settings, and I say that as in like maybe when I'm in a alien mood. Because usually I'm in different type of moods where I want to watch different types of films. Like I want to watch a serial killer movie. So I want to watch friggin' like specific sci-fi movies. Just you know what I'm saying. So I think if I'm in a specific type of mood and I've watched a bunch of movies, then maybe I could go back to watching this again to kind of like see if my impressions do change. But as of now, no. But who knows? But yeah, who knows? Maybe in the future I'll watch it again just to see. Because sometimes I need to watch movies twice.
And that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. Like
Yeah, exactly.
again, for my part, I don't think it's a bad movie whatsoever. But it's just like it's kind of like personal preferences.
Yeah.
In certain places. And again, I'm not a horror person, so it's not like I'm in a rush to go back and watch any horror movie, even though doing this channel's forced me to watch one too many horror movies.
Okay. I think we can wrap it up here. I think we've gotten a decent look at what Alien feels like when you're watching it for the first time in 2024 with pretty much fresh eyes.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoyed. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your opinions in the comment section below. Hervé.
Yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to watch us go through the rest of the Aliens journey and see if I like it a little bit more, especially if the next one's not horror.
All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you next week. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.